don't need a holiday because I don't consider what I do work. It's fun.
Yeah, so it's supposed to be. It's also programming, right? Like we need these days off in society. Otherwise, we don't function properly. Apparently.
That's simply not true. If I had a day off, I might not be able to talk to Max.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's I thought about that actually quite a bit once again, because you get all these messages and like Happy New Year and stuff, and I'm like, pff. So for me, the year doesn't really start now. It's just another business year, maybe, if even, and then you have all these controversies around hanging out with people that you don't really align with, and maybe that's the first question for you. How should we deal with these situations when we're in these times, when we have family over, let's say, and we're not really on the same page about a lot of topics? Like, what would you say is a good way to kind of navigate through those times to not really cut these people out? Because like sometimes it seems like it's the only way to cut them out, but maybe it's family, and it doesn't really make any sense. Like, you see, like, what was your opinion about that? Like, do you think there's a good way to navigate this?
Well, I can only talk about the relationship I had with my mother. She passed a couple of months ago now, but I would talk to her once or twice every week, whether in person
Mm,
or on the telephone. And I'd listen to her carry on about all this victim orientated stuff for about 40 minutes, and I would just listen. And every now and again, I'd divert her attention to something else because I wasn't going to enter the victim orientated conversation because that just makes it seem real, and it's not. And people who are talking from a victim orientated place are hurting themselves because they're in resistance to life. And so I wasn't about to support my mother hurting herself by supporting her victim orientated discussions. But rather than challenge them directly, I just listened and then I diverted her attention to something else.
mm. What if children are involved? When it's like one level deeper, it's not just about you, but how it affects them, and you cannot really, like, put yourself between them. Let's say, what do you think is a way to do that?
You'd have to give me a different type of scenario. I do have grandchildren.
Let's say, yeah, exactly. Let's say your mother, would kind of approach your children in the same way, and they don't know how to handle that situation like you do.
Oh, this is going to probably upset a lot of people, but I grew up in a very violent household with a lot of domestic violence and a lot of abuse. And once I had children, I wouldn't let my mother go anywhere near them because I didn't want them polluted by her. Because she was bad news. She was a toxic human being. Not that I didn't love her, but she was a toxic human being. And I didn't want her passing that toxicity on to my children. And so she never babysat them, not ever once. And she wasn't really allowed to come anywhere near them. And that might sound cruel and mean, but my job as a father was to protect my children.
Yeah, yeah, it's a tough one, definitely. Yeah, I've experienced, like, it's not that harsh, but like some similar stuff, and I thought about that a lot because, like, you don't want to, let's say, keep your and shield your children from everything, right? Like, they have to go through something, but there's definitely these levels to it. So definitely not the
Well, with my
yeah, not
children,
easy decision.
I homeschooled my children because I wanted to protect them from the schooling system that creates low self worth in children by having them compete with each other. And you don't need to have your child wounded in that way. And so I didn't. I homeschooled my children until they were old enough to leave home. I saw my role as a man and as a dad to protect and ready my children for manhood and womanhood. And so I did. And into that effort, I kept them away from any influence that may have been detrimental or negative to them into their growing into adults.
Yeah. Why do you think it's so difficult for people to see through this whole structure that most people grow up in? Because like I agree with you. Like I will homeschool my children as well, and there's like so much friction going on when you talk about these topics, right? Like most people don't even think about that. Like for them it's just absolutely normal to go the same way as everybody did, as their parents did, right? They don't even go into these topics mentally and explore them. Like why do you think the programming is so strong that like barely anyone can look through that and see through that?
The main reason is it's supported by inconvenience. It's not convenient to homeschool your children. It's not convenient to keep your children away from toxic people. It's an inconvenience because you're going to get challenged. And so people, I don't think, are prepared to be that inconvenienced.
Yeah, so it's for laziness in the end.
Well, it's not just laziness, it's also the fear of not being accepted by their friends and the rest of their family or their peers. There's a lot of fear involved, you know. They'd rather have the children damaged than actually face their own fears.
So fear is actually the underlying problem with it all, which makes which closes the circle as to why we're exposed to fearful news all the time, to fearful information all the time, because it keeps people in the loop, right?
Well, it keeps people in a state of tension rather than a state of relaxation. And when you really allow yourself to relax, you see all this stuff. But when you're in a state of tension, you don't see much at all because you're blinded. You're locked in lower consciousness. It's
Yeah.
important to be able to develop a relaxed mind in this life so we can see clearly.
Yeah, it's interesting because like I talked to people where I thought, okay, they are very relaxed, but they don't explore these thoughts. They don't explore these structures that we're in. They just keep them separate. Like what do you think that is? Because like to me that's a natural progression of thought, right? Like once you have the space to go into these topics, then you will explore them, right? Like I don't think the way is to push them aside. Like what do you think is going on there?
Well, I didn't have children until I was in my 30s. And by that time, and I was going to have children, I decided to study child psychology before I had children because I thought, well, wouldn't it be good if I actually understood children before I had them? And
Yeah.
so that set me up as curious to everything else. You know, what works for them, what doesn't work for them. How can I be a good parent? And how can I be a bad parent? And what's the difference? And this questioning in my own mind brought me to an understanding that kids need to be loved and protected.
Yeah, definitely. What do you think is the spiritual significance, for us fathers with becoming, fathers and having children? What do you think is going on there?
I don't think there's anything going on really. It's just a natural progression that if you get together with a partner, the chances are you're going to have children. And then your life changes because all of a sudden they need your attention. All of a sudden you don't have the freedoms that you used to have. All of a sudden you're actually a prisoner. And if you can accept the prison of having children, it's not a problem. But if you resist it, then you have a true problem. If in having children, we've got to be prepared to give the children attention. We've got to be prepared to take care of them. We can't simply live our life as we used to. It's over. The life we had before is over. It is now it has now got baggage that needs to be
Yeah.
taken care of.
Yeah, that was my thought behind it, because I see a lot of men especially blocking that thought out, right? Like they do everything in their power to not become a father, right? Like they're even sterilizing themselves at like 30 years old and stuff like that. Like that was the thought that I had there with that question, because I think there, that spiritual significance behind it is that you change your life, right? Like your whole focus shifts, right? And
It
if you block
does.
it out, you block your whole progress out, right? Like you'll be stuck there.
That's true. And if you don't want to have children, sterilization is an answer if you don't want to have them, if you're not prepared to take that responsibility. And so after having three children, I went for sterilization because I didn't want any more. I didn't want the responsibility of having any more. Three was enough.
Yeah. But if you don't have any yet, and then you want to change your mind later, it's going to be interesting. Yeah.
Oh, it's reversible. The operations are reversible.
Yeah.
So
For
you
men.
can you
For
can
men.
have the operation and have it reversed if you want to. It's up to you. It's up to the individual. Like people are into freedom. There's not a great deal of freedom in having children because all of a sudden you've got people that are totally dependent on you and need your attention and need your love. And you're not free to just jump in the car and go to a coffee shop anymore or go and play a game of golf or football or whatever. You've got to be there for them. And that's that. That's how it is. It's how the cookie
Yeah.
crumbles.
Yeah. And it's good. It's good that way. Yeah. Because like my first son, we weren't planning on having him, and it, like we talked in the last podcast, right? It is, in the end, it's surrender, right? You just let it flow and you see what happens, right? And I think there's not one single thing that was negative about that experience so far. So yeah, just some encouragement to people that, because I had fears too. I thought back then, why would I put a child in this world, right? Like, there's so much like shit going on. There's no point in this, right? But in the end, it's up to us, right? Like we can only change this reality through them, right? At least that's my
Well,
perspective on
that's
it.
one way of looking at it. I had a different way. I didn't plan on any of the pregnancies. They were all accidents. I was told they
Yeah.
were safe each time. But that turned out not to be true. But as soon as the woman told me that she was pregnant, I committed to taking care of that child because I didn't have a right to tell the woman that I didn't want the child, and I just didn't give myself that right. I
Yeah.
was going to be a father, and that was that, and I accepted that.
Yeah. I think that's part of it, right? And I think it's a good way to go. And I think we need more excellent parents out there, that just try and work on themselves and maybe focus on raising some healthy humans. Yeah. So you would say excluding toxic people, it doesn't matter who it is, just don't let them near them.
Well, you've got to look at what's best for the child, not what's best for you and your relationships. What's best for the child here? Is it good for them to hang out with someone who's toxic, who's going to poison them, or is it not? What? Because people take care of themselves, and sometimes at the cost of their own children, and that's not cool.
Mm.
You have to be prepared to take the fire for the child.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that practicing discernment there, because like your perception of the toxicity on that level is different than what it will mean for the child, right? Yeah.
Well, as adults, we know when someone's toxic and when they're not. We can tell by simply listening to them how they think, how they are operating in the world, and what they're going to pass verbally and energetically to a child. You just know, and you put your child in that kind of environment, you're responsible for poisoning them.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, tough one. I thought about the quantum field, and it was interesting, because that's like physics nowadays, right? And like, just the like probably a lot of your teachers I don't know if they would refer to it in the same way, but like how did you experience that for the first time? Were you teachers talking about quantum field, or was it always just a different kind of concept that was brought to you?
I felt the quantum field when I came into the presence of my awake teachers. It started
Mm,
to make my mind disappear. At times, it felt like I was falling. At times, it made me feel like I was just space and without a thought. And this was the energy field that they were putting off. And sometimes it's called a Buddha field or a quantum field, but it's the field of energy around someone who's fully enlightened.
yeah. And what did, for example, what did Osho like refer to it? Like, how did he put it into words?
Well, he would have referred to it as the Buddha field.
Mm,
Mm. And his Buddha field was quite strong. It blew my mind. I was sitting in front of him, talking, interviewing him like you're interviewing me right now, and I had this set of questions, and all I could do was read the questions because my mind was gone. And all I could do with the questions was read one word at a time because my mind just wasn't holding itself together. And so that was my first strong experience of a Buddha field. And it was like, wow, it was pretty cool.
yeah. Yeah. So maybe we have to do one in person at some point. It's
Oh,
maybe.
yeah, you'll find that to be a little different.
Yeah, maybe not. Maybe not. Uh, yeah. So because I think time interlinks into that, right? Because for me, but the first time I really experienced like that whole concept of time, is kind of just a concept, was when I healed some stuff and some topics within me, and then I saw the effect with my mother like right away. Literally a couple of days after I saw the effect, and that's super interesting because I don't think a lot of people talk about that. Like, what's your take on that whole thing? Like time and healing. Like, let's say our reality, and then we heal the people that are in our timeline. Like, what do you think are the connections there?
I understand your question and I understand your statement, but I don't know. I don't know the
Mm,
answer, whether that actually occurs or not. I've done a lot of healing on this body and this mind, and I started when I was very young, but I don't know how that impacted anyone from my past that was involved in the damage. I know how it impacted on people in my future because I'd stopped the violence, you know,
mm,
because as a teenager, I was a violent young man as a result of my upbringing. But that had all stopped because I had refused to be a victim of anything. And to get angry, you have to be a victim. And I just wouldn't support a victim orientated thinking. And so anger had been ruled out of my life. Admittedly, it took a couple of years of practice before that happened, but it happened.
mm. So, because in my experience, the people that could be the most violent, they're the softest. Dude, is that
Uh,
is that also what you see? Because I think true softness can in a lot of ways only come through real violence. Like, they're like, if you know how to be violent, then you don't want to be that at all, right? Like in your case, it's a great example. Like, do you
I
think
think I
that's
think it's human to be violent. I think humans basically have the killer inside of them. All of us, whether we activate it or not, it's another story. But I think we all have the killer inside of us. It's just a part because of society's ways. We suppress that part pretty aggressively. But you do see that part come out with the street people, with the bikies and people like that. You see that violence come out because it's in every one of us.
mm,
It's just that we do have a choice to run it or not.
yeah, but we're like forced to suppress it in school, let's say, right? Like, you're not supposed to show any aggression as a boy,
No, you're not. And
right?
that's right. It
That's
was suppressed. The only time it could come out was during playtime when no one was watching.
Yeah, and then it's too much, right?
Mm. Yeah, look, I can't agree with violence of any kind.
Mm.
It's against the heart.
And then practice, that's why we let it out. Yeah, so I had a wrist injury now, like since many months, and I had to take a break from impact sports, and it's interesting because like I felt like this, maybe it's violence, maybe it's aggression, like build up in a way, and I there are ways for me to kind of let it out, but it's not the same. It's not the same when when you're used to training and then like you have to switch that around. It's an interesting
Yeah.
one, at least for me. Yeah.
Well, it happened. I played rugby for 14 years. Into my, I think I was 28 when I stopped playing rugby. And the last 2 years of it, I wasn't playing to win. I was playing for the game. When we play to win, we can get violent. When we just play for the game, it's an altogether different game.
It's a beautiful game. When I lived in the UK, I watched it many times. It's a
Ah,
beautiful game. But yeah, I saw a lot of that as well. What you're talking about, like just in a like crunch, and then being like punching the balls, and yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on.
oh
Definitely.
yeah. Well, when I first
Yeah.
got into it, I was only 14, I think, something like that, and I was violent. I was a violent
Mm,
young man because I'd had such a horrific upbringing, and it came out on the sports field.
definitely. But how's
And
your? Yeah, go for it.
well, I'm just so glad that I was able to see through that at the age of 19 and stop it
Mm.
by not being a victim, because anger requires victim orientated thinking. It requires you to be blaming something or someone. And if you remove the blame and take responsibility that you make yourself feel, it all stops. It all goes away.
What is that pattern, in your opinion, when people always blame themselves for everything, right? And they get into
Well,
this
that's the
this victim
same. That's
state.
the same. It's the same. There's three ways you can get angry. You can blame another, you can blame a situation, or you can blame yourself. But it
Same coin.
involves blame, and blame is the fuel that fires anger. And it is bad news to be angry because it destroys relationships.
And sadness, because that's just, to me, that's also kind of the same. It's very similar.
No, sadness is a little different. Sadness is related to loss, whereas anger is related to blame. They're two different emotions altogether, really. When we lose something, we can go into sadness, we can go into grief, but we can't really go into anger unless we blame someone or something or ourselves.
Mm.
But we have to. It involves blame. That's the fuel that fires anger. And so if you're sad about losing something and you go into blaming someone for it, then you can go into anger from sadness. But not unless you apply blame.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I thought about that, the last like 2 3 weeks quite a bit, because yeah, for me actually, I see it a bit different, because I see, you know, I have someone in my family, where I saw it quite clearly, and like anger, sadness, and blame, it's like a triangle, right? That's being played, and I haven't quite understood yet like what the exact root is, but yeah, sure, it's grief on that sadness part, and that where that aggression comes from, I still have to figure it out. But yeah, interesting. How?
Without blame, there can be no aggression.
Hmm. Yeah, maybe it's just one layer that's added. Maybe it's not real aggression. Maybe it's just kind of like fake aggression. Do you think that exists?
Fake
Like that out of
aggression.
fear? Yeah, that's coming out of fear.
Aggression is aggression.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's very yang. It's very outward bound.
What about these people that kind of, play like they're, they possess that aggression, and then they face someone that, can basically, just dismantle their whole facade, and then, they retract pretty fast, let's say. It's not real
You,
aggression.
you're welcome.
Yeah, okay, how's it with friendship with you? Because like I'm sure you lost a lot of friends along the way, me as well. Like I've always been like in these small groups when I was younger, never really fit in, and I'm used to it, right? But like now people say, okay, through COVID I lost so many friends and all that kind of stuff, and I'm like, yeah, well, I mean, that's just normal progress. Like, how is it with you? Like, do you have like meaningful friendships still at that age, or like how did that develop through the years?
Right now, you are my friend. Right now,
Yes.
you are my friend. Right now. And I feel your friendship right now. And that's real. Now, if I cast my mind back and start remembering friends,
Mm,
well, that's just dream. That's not real. Right now,
mm,
you're real. I'm real. And our conversation is real. And you are my friend right now. I also have three friends in the room with me here at the moment who are silent, but they are my friends. And I'm with them now. And so that friendship is alive and real now. Someone who's not in here, that's dream. I'd have to be dreaming to bring them into my life through imagination. And so right now, you are my friend.
understood. But you have to put time and energy into keeping these relationships alive, right? So you have to dream at some point to say, okay, I have to contact them. Maybe I have to, exchange some information with them, and maybe say hello and ask how they're doing. So how is that on that level? Because they're not real in that sense. So you have to dream about, thinking about them.
You're
You
going to
see?
hate my answer,
No,
but
no, I'm not
unless
gonna
you're
hate
in
it.
my sight, unless you're in my sight, uh, you're not really my friend. It's not that you're my enemy, because I'm not into imagining things. I'm not into living in my head in dream. I love no mind. I love not thinking. I love just being here with people. And for me, this is reality, and everything imagined is dream. And I'm not interested in dreaming. I'm just not, because it's where people hurt themselves, and it's not real. And so right now, you're in front of me. You're real. You're my friend. Ish is here. She's my friend. Tosh is here. He's my friend. Tirth is here. He's my friend. These are my friends right now. Now, I can use my imagination and think of other people who I've spent time with today, but really they're not here right now. So they're not my friends right now. You are, because you're real and I'm real. And this time is real. Past is not real. It's gone.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll always be gone. I just heard yesterday, saw a clip, and it said, that special time with your toddler, once it's over, it's gone. I'm like, yeah, yeah, for sure it's gone. But it's an interesting one with with kids, especially, right? Because like, I think for me at least, that was the first time I saw, okay, how fast time actually progresses, and to enjoy the now more, and to be more present. It's definitely with kids, definitely. I don't know. I don't think we talked about karma. At least I don't remember we did.
Well, I had a
What?
dog called Karma.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
little
how was that?
Maltese cross. He was a good dog. He ended up costing me a fortune in vet fees before he passed, but he was a good dog, Karma.
So was it good karma with him, or?
Well, it wasn't so good karma for him. No, he passed, but he was a good dog. He lived for
Yeah.
6 years, and those 6 years, I treasured those 6 years. It was lovely to have him in my life.
Yeah, but what's your take on like karmic load and stuff like that?
Uh,
Like, do you think it exists?
well, a different subject. Yes, I do feel that karma is real. It is my experience that karma is real. What we put into life, we get back. And karma can happen immediately or it can happen later. And it seems to me that karma can also be passed from life to life.
How's that? Why would you say that?
My experience, I only talk about my own direct experience. I don't talk about anything I've read in books or what other people have said. I started experiencing my past lives some 30 years ago, and I have had 100 at least past lives on this planet. And there has been karma in every life that led me to be reborn again, mostly because I was a soldier in every life. I was either a soldier or a sage in every life, and I was involved in killing. And you can't be involved in killing and think that somehow your karma is going to be good because it's not. And so this life, I haven't been involved in killing, which has been really good.
Yeah. Past lives. Yeah, I think. Do you think we kind of reincarnate until our job is done, whatever that is?
I don't know. I know that I can't come back again because there's no one here to come back. The I disappeared, or the sense of I disappeared 25 years ago. There's no sense that someone's talking to you right now. There's an absence, in fact. There's no sense that there's someone sitting here. There's an absence, in fact. And that's been like that now for 25 years. Along with the sense of I disappearing, all fear disappeared. Have not experienced any form of fear in 25 years. And that's been pretty good. What I do experience is a lot of bliss.
So maybe your job is done in this lifetime.
I don't even know that. Like, people love to know the answer to things because it makes them feel secure. But I'm actually okay with insecurity, so I don't need to know. And I'm okay with not knowing.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. I kind of I'm totally fine with it. I actually like uncertainty for some reason.
Well, when I was
It
younger, I
cost.
used to like danger.
Yeah.
If you were a dangerous character, I'd want to know you see, because I was attracted to danger because danger indicated fun.
Mm.
If it was really safe, it indicated boredom. And so as a young man, I was attracted to dangerous people in dangerous situations. So I was into extreme sports because it was fun.
Yeah. Do you think that comes out of like looking for distractions?
It could very well be coming out of that, yes.
Mm.
There could be many reasons for it. I don't necessarily look for danger anymore, though I do drive a racing car and and ride motorbikes.
Yeah. Well, speed. It's just part of our lives, right?
It can be. It depends on how fast you can get to 100 kilometers an hour.
Yeah. Well, that's acceleration, right? Like that's real speed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm not talking about the drug speed. I'm not talking about amphetamine here.
Yeah. Yeah. Nasty stuff.
Yeah, I
Maybe
agree.
that's a good.
Terrible.
Yeah. Yeah. I tried that uh, in my 20s for sure. Well, maybe that's a good segue to addictions because I want to go back there. But in your time when you kind of switch to working with people in that sense, what was what did that mean to you, that that addictive kind of tendency with people, how and how did you find a way to kind of work with people on that? Because I'm that's the topic that interests me at this moment. So maybe we can,
Well,
go
as
into
a
that a bit.
psychotherapist, I worked as an addictions counselor for about 6 years, uh, along with everything else I was doing. But heroin addictions, crystal meth addiction, gambling addiction, pornography addiction, any type of addiction I'd work with people on, because I had an understanding of my own mind, my own addictive mind. And the only way that you can stop an addiction is you stop it. There is no other way. You stop it. But the addicted part of the mind is always looking for another way, an easy way. There is no easy way. If you don't want to do drugs anymore, you stop taking drugs. It's that simple. And you stop hanging out with the people who supplied you. And you stop hanging out with the people you did the drugs with. And so there's a loss involved in giving up, particularly a drug addiction, because usually all your friends are involved in it as well. And that's what I had to do when I gave up using ecstasy. I had to quit my friends because all they wanted to do was supply me with more drugs, because they wanted me to be a part of the party, And so I had to give up the drug, and I had to give up them as well. And years after that, I trained with the Drug and Alcohol Authority and became an addictions counsellor and helped other people get off drugs and different addictions because it was an interest to me.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say it's a loss. Yeah, because it's a loss of your personality in that sense that you got used to, but you probably also prefer when you take some sort of a drug. You prefer to be that way. It's a loss of that persona. Interesting. What was the let's say most profound kind of education you took on that sense? That one you just mentioned now, or was there anything else where you said, okay, now it clicked. Now I understand this whole field.
Well, the reason I got into ecstasy was the first time I took it, I felt this magnificent love inside myself, which I had not experienced in that totality ever before. And it took me a long time to work out what had happened. My mind's defenses had been taken down by the drug. And in that vulnerable open space, I started to experience what's always here, unconditional love. And so I was attracted to taking more of the drug because I was attracted to that feeling, that beautiful love, that beautiful feeling. But eventually I just became addicted to the drug, and you need more and more and more of it to get any kind of effect, because the mind actually defends itself against being taken over by the drug. And so eventually I gave it up. One night I was at a party with my friends, and I had a video camera with me, and about 2 o'clock in the morning someone took my camera and made a video of me while I was high on ecstasy, and I had a look at it the next day, and that was the end of it for me. My eyes were rolling back in my head. I couldn't believe I'd dropped to such a low, and that was the group of friends I had to leave.
I
It was
imagine
such
now
a
you
shock
see.
to see myself.
Yeah, imagine you see that video now on YouTube. Or,
No, I
just like
actually I wiped that video clean so no one could see it.
yeah, what I meant, like nowadays, everyone just makes videos of other people and they just put them online, right? That's what I meant. It's like
Ah,
just not another level. Yeah, but in your time as a therapist, right? Like in that time when you kind of acquired all these skills, work with people, what were those? Those pillars when you said, okay, this sort of education, this one education that I just received made the difference in me understanding humans on that level. Was there one kind of coach or one like therapist that taught you something? Like, what was special? Was there
it
anything in
it
that in the journey?
it came to. I was motivated by not willing to live any longer, because I'd become so clear that I'd seen that everybody I knew was suffering, and that we weren't really going anywhere. And I couldn't see any point in continuing. And then I chose that if I was going to live this life, instead of choosing to live it selfishly, I was going to choose to live the way of the heart. And I put my total effort into pursuing the way of the heart. Because when I was serving heart, which usually meant when I was serving other humans, I felt happy. And I enjoyed that happiness. And so I called that manageable happiness. So the big change in me was not wanting to be here anymore because I could see all the suffering in everybody I knew, including myself. And that I couldn't find a purpose in life or a meaning in life. And so I decided to live a way of life that included what I called manageable happiness, which was the way of the heart, the way of giving. And that's when I went back to school and trained as a naturopath and psychotherapist, so I'd have some skills that I could help people with. That was my motivator.
What were some of these skills? Like, if you just could pick three that you would, work with people on and help them get from A to B?
Well, you talked to me for 5 minutes and I've worked you out. You've given me enough information. You've loaded my guns. You won't know you've done it, but you've done it. You've told me too much.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course. That's one thing about the podcast, right? Take the pants off.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
With naturopathy, it was just I wanted to help people with their health. And I specialized in physiotherapy work and chiropractic work because I liked helping people with their body problems. And I loved it. I really did. I just loved doing it. It was wonderful to be able to have people come in and walk out feeling very differently. There was a lot of reward in that, in the feelings,
Yeah, definitely. I was on the receiving end of that for a long time. Yeah, I still go regularly, but when I had that injury and like when that flared up, I was basically going 4 or 5 times a week, and I could see,
Yeah.
my therapist, and he didn't believe that he could really help me at that point. And 2 years later, he told me that, right? He's like, man, I didn't think I was gonna make it. It was like so bad, but yeah, it's just a different level for him. I saw how happy he was that this was a successful kind of therapy, but definitely gives back, for sure.
Yeah. It is
Yeah.
nice to give back. It is nice to give back.
Why do you think, like for people like you and me, because it's pushing me into that field of being of service and helping people, why do you think there has to be like such a low point before that? Do you think that's it's by design, or
I don't know. I had to hit rock bottom to actually make a decision because it was a life-changing decision. It was I'd lived my life up until that point as a businessman and a highly successful businessman, and I had all the toys, but I recognized that I wasn't really happy. I recognized that there was no purpose in life, there was no meaning to life, and that everybody I knew was miserable while pretending to be okay. And I just thought, I don't want to continue this. I need to change it. And so I did. I changed it. I changed my whole way of life. But that involved me taking off my shoes, handing my companies over to my staff free, giving them my companies, taking my shoes off and walking around Australia barefoot for 4 years in search of my heart. Because as a businessman, I was so closed and so defended, I didn't have access to my heart.
what do you think is the actual reason for the need to give it away, like to give that money away? Because like a lot of times, people say money spiritual, and that's like the jargon out there. Like, why is money such an important pillar, right? That can go and all the way to the negative, but like it can also help so much and change lives in a positive way. Like, what do you think is that sweet spot, right? With that.
It wasn't just the money, it was my whole organization, because I had a publishing
Mm,
company, and it was my
yeah.
whole organization was built as a war machine, and I was a war machine, and I couldn't just sell it because the staff had been with me for 10 years and they deserved better than that, so I gave it to them. And I left without anything. I left broke, basically. I even gave away 14 rooms of furniture, offices of furniture, because I was connected to it all. And I didn't want the connection any longer. I wanted to be free of that connection, completely free of that connection. And I have never had a regret that I did that. It's always been a good thing to get a chance to have a different life.
Clean cut.
Very clean cut.
Mm.
And then to live the way of the heart, which I've done so since, has been just beautiful.
So the only way, apparently, right?
I reckon. I'll agree with you.
Yeah, it's interesting. When I think back on my life, so much stuff like could have worked out differently, and it didn't. And at some point, I was like, "Why the fuck didn't this work out?" No, I know, right? Like it just put me in this position that I'm in now, and I'm just closing like old companies in Germany, for example, right? Like it's a process, and it takes time. It's so annoying in a sense, right? But it's that clean cut that I'm looking for, but it's still a progress. It's not like just walking out the room, right?
For me, it was. I said, you now own my companies. I don't want to hear from you again. And I walked
Yeah,
out, and I never heard from them again
yeah,
because I made myself uncontactable.
mm. Yeah. It would be nice to be able to do that, but cannot do that. Yeah, but it's all good. It's just a couple months, and then I'll be out of it with that one at least. So it's good. What's your take on astrology?
Yeah, I don't really get into it because there's too much airy fairy stuff. I like really, really pragmatic stuff.
Yeah,
Astrology is too airy fairy for me. But if people are into it, they're into it. That's okay.
yeah. It's just always interesting to me because it's always like floating around there, and then you see these people talking about it, and sometimes it resonates, sometimes it doesn't, and if it's phrased in a way, it will always resonate. Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting topic to me
So,
because I'm
so
not
what?
even too sure what's going on up there. Like do
So,
we really
so,
know?
so what star sign are you?
Well, I always thought that I was Sagittarius, and then I found
Uh-huh.
out kind of recently, maybe 2 years ago, that I'm a Scorpio.
Yeah, I would have picked you as a Scorpio. The
Yeah,
Sagittarian is an arrow firer, a bit of Scorpio in there.
yeah, yeah. It's because I
Ah,
worked with an astrologer that she's doing it differently than the mainstream, and that's when I
ah.
found out I'm a Scorpio.
Yeah, I did direct astrology for a while. That was where you acted out the different parts. I did this, I think, month-long course where you played the role of
Mm.
every element. That was fun. That was just an experiment. And so I did get into looking at astrology, but I kind of had to leave it behind. Uh, Too much maybes and could be's and ifs and buts.
I think it's nice to maybe check it out in retrospect. Like if you see, okay, this could have been an alignment at an earlier age. If I would have done this, but then again, you're in this weird like thought process, right? Like, which makes no sense, anyways. But in my experience, the better the astrologer, the more precise it was. Let's say.
Ah, well, fair enough.
Yeah, it's good. Um, so in the beginning, you said you don't celebrate any of these holidays. Like for you, every day is the same.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not
Do you
into the problem with public holidays is things are closed. You know.
yeah. Why do you think? That this is. Do you think it's part of consumerism that it's being built that way? That whole system. That now is a Black Friday. Now it's Christmas. Now you need to buy
Yeah,
present for your children.
it's all about making money.
Yeah.
It's all about making money for shopkeepers and advertising. People take advantage of it and make you feel discontent, so you'll buy something you don't need.
Yeah, but they made a nice interlink with religion, right? Like it's well put.
Yeah, maybe. I
Yeah, you
don't
don't want to
really.
go.
I'm not really into it. It's like every day needs to be celebrated, not some special
Yeah,
day. Every day you're breathing, or as the old boys say, every day above ground is a celebration.
do you
You
think
know,
humans have to be close to death to really know what that means? Like what
probably.
if you have experience, right? Because like to
Yeah,
me, I think that's when it shifted. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. Well, when you've had near-death experiences, your whole attitude to death changes because you know how fragile you are. You know how easy it is to go, and you don't postpone as much because you know that you don't have that much time left. When you're 21, you think you've got ages to go. When I was 21, I didn't think I had a year to go because so many of my friends had died from drug overdoses and car accidents. I realized that my life was in jeopardy, and I celebrated every day since.
yeah,
Because you might not have another day, mate. You might not have another day.
definitely, definitely. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, once I went through that, after that, it shifted for me too. It took a while to really fully, integrate it, but then understood it. Okay, this could have been it, and it didn't even just happen once, happened many times, but after that, life is different. That's for sure.
So, what sort of accident did you have?
I don't think I ever told that story publicly. Actually, like that the one I was just thinking about. I I had a blackout, and in that blackout, I drove a car.
Oh,
Yeah,
into
over
what?
the highway. Oh, well, I drove it like for half an hour, and I don't remember anything. And then I crashed at a light. I was really close to home, and I
Ah,
drove over the motorway. I went off the motorway, and I just assumed that probably my adrenaline dropped, and I fell asleep. I just crashed
ah.
into the yeah.
And did you get injured?
But yeah, I mean, I think like my neck injury just kind of got like lifted up once again, and made worse. But apart from that, I was lucky. Like my car was total,
Ah,
but yeah, I could have just if I would have fallen asleep like 2 minutes before that, that would have been it. On the highway,
ah.
I just left off the
Oh,
highway. 200 meters after that, yeah,
you're meant to be here, or
yeah,
you would be gone already. You're meant to be
hundred
here,
percent.
mate.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Yeah, that's why I said after that a lot of thought processes and my life shifted. It took me a couple years to really clean myself up after that. But yeah, that was one of these moments where I was like lifted out of it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. But it's good. I think I needed it, so it's all good. It's all good. Yeah,
that's
but
the
I mean,
attitude. That's the
yeah,
correct attitude. Everything's always good.
yeah, yeah. Because like
Accept,
I just thought about
accept
that the other
everything.
day. Yeah, exactly. Because like people always like when like shit hits the fan and stuff gets difficult. I'm like, good. Well, why are you saying good? Yeah, because now you can think differently. Now you can prove to yourself that you what you're made of, right? Like I always say, it's good when it's difficult.
Mm.
It's supposed to be difficult sometimes, right?
Well, it is difficult sometimes, Max. That's just what is. And what is okay by me.
Yeah, that's a good conclusion, I would say. That's where you
Okay,
want to
Max.
be, where I want to be. Yeah, let's enjoy the present as long as we can, right? Are your children, are they still in Australia, or did anyone leave?
My son died about 6 years ago from cancer, so he
Mm,
left.
okay,
And I got two daughters. One got married about a month ago, and the other one has had. I've got two grandchildren with.
nice.
Yeah,
That's a different level, right? Like, do you feel like the connection to them is different than anything else you've experienced before?
man, I'm so detached from everything. It's not funny.
Okay, okay. Understood. Okay, nice. Well, thank you so much for your time again, and that was a nice start into the Gregorian New Year.
Max, it was lovely chatting with you again.